bless you. Okay, so here we go. What you're going to see, and the streaming should start, again, mute on the keyboard there. On the keyboard, it's easier. Okay, so what you guys are going to see is quite a few things here. I'm going to try and turn this down because I am loud, and I'm in the middle of a hurricane, obviously, it sounds like. Okay, so in Fusion, or I should say in the Google Classroom, if you scroll down to Resources, the very last thing that I posted recently, it's called Fusion 360 Browser Version. If your computer, I'm not trying to call people out here, but if your computer is not, you know, efficient enough or effective enough to actually run Fusion or download Fusion, you can run this thing literally on like a Chromebook, okay, like on an iPad if you want it. Doesn't matter. And how you do that is I made the setup, the step-by-step, click here, click here, click here, on here, but I'm going to walk you through how to do that real quick. If you click on that link, and then inside of that link, you guys will see, once it loads up here, sign in up on the top right. I'm going to show you, mine's already signed in, but it would say sign in, you sign into your Fusion account. Then it'll bring you back to this screen once you're signed in. You come down to Fusion Team, and again, it's going to ask me to sign back in, ask me for texting and all that stuff. Boy, I'm going to sign out. Sign in. Next. Sign in. Brings me back. Good. Brings me back to that screen. I go to the Fusion team now. I'm glad that happened. It shows you these three dots, and then it'll show you all the projects you've been working on in this list here. For example, I just did all these, you know, the other day or whatever. I'll click on one, right? If I click on one, double click it, whatever you want to do, owned by me, shared by me, all that stuff is in there. I just double click that one just to give you an example. Once you click on your design, it'll come up here. You'll see a pencil up here, okay? Reminder, this has nothing to do with downloading Fusion. If you can't do it, go to this little pencil, edit in browser, not on desktop. If you edit in browser, it literally brings open an extension tab, and Fusion dumbed down a little bit. I mean that there's basically no rendering, no animation, none of that complex stuff. But as far as editing a part, like what you're doing right now, I can do everything I can do in Fusion on my browser, okay? Literally just as a tab here. So if you have an iPad, if you have something that you can go to the library with, you don't have to download anything that way. It's not, like I said, the modeling, look at all the stuff that you're missing here. But at the same time, it gives you the basics of what you could do, and then you can go back to class and keep working, okay? So that's the first thing I want to go over. Let's go over some of these problems here. I'm going to bring this whole thing down, actually, just so I can see it. Don't want to call anybody out. We'll go back to classwork. Look at some of these do nows. Okay, so the biggest challenge, 25 of you are done. Click on it accidentally, confused. Okay, how to get back home. That was a big one. Okay. Okay. Base, okay. Metric, okay. Too many sketches, that's a good one, okay. Okay, so all of the other ones are pretty much the same. We're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Fusion here. Now here's the game plan. I'm going to go and draw, like I said, each one of these pieces that you guys were supposed to draw inside of here and quickly. And that's not to impress you, it's just to give you guys a step-by-step on how I would do it. And again, that's not the perfect way, or the only way I should say, to do it. If you go to Isometric Sketching, and I'm just going to do these ones here. I'm going to start with A. So if you see A, we are going to do each one of these. So if you look at this drawing here, I would always start, and I referenced this before, but I'm going to repeat it over and over again. I would always start with the most complex side that you can possibly view. Okay? So if you look at this side on the left, this is the front view. I would always start with the front view in most cases. It's the most complex. In this case, it's not too complex. It's an L, but I'm going to use that information to basically draw what I need to draw. So I'm going to start a new sketch. A couple of you guys were saying, I have too many sketches. Start with one sketch. After you start with that one sketch, start from the origin from there, go into a line. Don't hold and click, because if you hold and click, remember, it creates an arc. We don't want an arc. If you ever get lost and you're like, I'm in La La Land, Press escape, escape, escape. Just press it a couple times and it'll work fine. Click on the lines that you don't like, delete them, and now you can go back into that same line, okay? So beyond that, let's start this. You got 1.25 plus the 1 is 2.25. Press enter. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go and press a line again from that endpoint. I'm going to go up. It says 0.75. Press enter. Do the same exact thing. Go in this case, it says, let's see. I don't want to do it that way. Let's go this way. It's probably easier. Then I don't have to do math. Go up 1.5. Press enter. You can also just press enter again. No, you can't. I deleted it. Never mind. Go to this. Go over 0.75. Draw a line again. Go down. It says 0.75. And then connect the dots. And it colors it. We're good to go. Now, what view is this? What do we just call this? Front, top, or side? What view did we just call this? Front. What does it say on the cube over here? That we're in the top, right? So a lot of people were freaking out. They're like, I can't, every time I press like home, it puts me in a weird orientation. This is how you fix that. If I want this to be my front view, first of all, I make it as pretty as possible and as flat and perfect as possible. Right click, set current view, front. Done. Now this whole entire thing is exactly where it's supposed to be. So I can press home, and this is my home now, my front, my side, everything's all good. I didn't show you that before, sorry. Okay? Now we're going to extrude. So I'm going to extrude this whole entire thing, the whole depth of what I want. I can go either way, positive or negative, doesn't matter in this case. I'm going to go 1.5. I can type it in here, or I can just start typing. It's usually pretty good. And now from here, I can just start cutting. All I got to do is cut this little piece out, this little piece of cheese, I like to call it. It's a 1 by 0.75 little piece. So I am going to do that. Let me bring this back up and put it down here. Sorry. So I'm going to bring that, and then I'm going to draw a new sketch. Now, this is why everybody gets 15 billion sketches. From here, after you draw the initial piece, the initial object, don't try and pick a plane anymore. Now it's surfaces. What do I want to draw on? Do I want to draw a new surface, or do I want to cut something, add to it? I want to cut into this surface. So I'm going to draw into that surface. I'm going to draw a rectangle from that corner. And I'm going to go over. Now you see how I have two separate dimensions. So if you do this, if you press 1 as the first one, the blue is obviously whatever is going to be attached. Press tab, it actually jumps to the other dimension. That one's already at 0.75. You press enter, and you're good there. You can stop the sketch now. Extrude, instead of adding, we're going to cut into the piece, and we're going to cut it as it says right there, 0.5. It's going to be negative 0.5. Press OK, and now I have my first piece. Okay? That's the first one. File, save, and this is the same. It's just practice, guys. It's not, you're not going to get it perfect every single time. Press A, you're good to go. Part B, next. Part B, if you look at it, a lot of people screwed this one up by starting with the triangle. Or, starting the big box and trying to cut the triangle out. That's probably the hardest thing I could probably ever teach you to do that way. What in this case I would do is I always tell you to pick the front view, that most complex view, right? Well, in this case, I could section this out. I could cut it in a whole bunch of different pieces, in 3 pieces specifically, and try and make it so that it's easier to manipulate. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to draw the rectangle first. New sketch. I'm going to draw the rectangle from the origin. I'm going to go 1.5, tab, 1.5, and now I have my perfect little square there. I'm going to press stop sketch. And again, I don't like that this is not front view, so I'm going to go top view, right click, set current view as front. Now I got my perfect view. I can press extrude. I can extrude this either way I want. I'm going to extrude it this way just for personal preference. 0.5. And now what I did was I just drew that back square. So I'm going to draw a new sketch onto this surface, and I'm going to draw exactly what I see. I see this piece here. I see this piece coming from there, and it goes over 0.5. I don't know how much this angle is yet. I'm going to draw another line here, draw another line, up, 0.25 it says now. Now I have my two dots. I can connect the dots, stop the sketch, extrude the distance that I need it to be, which in this case is going to be 1 minus 2.25, which is 1.25. Last but not least, the good thing about Fusion and the great thing about Fusion I like is that projection is already done for you. So before, we'd have to take this and project it over so we could see it. Nah. Now we just press New Sketch, the surface I want to draw on, a rectangle, and it automatically picks up the other stuff that's across the board. Because remember, we're on this sketch, right? We're on this edge here. We're not even looking at this over here, and it's automatically identifying it, which really helps us. Stop sketch. Now I'm going to pick both of those, this and this, and I'm going to extrude it the distance I need it to be, which is 0.5. The object is done. Okay? I know I make it look really easy, but again, it's just about how you visualize the part. Okay? C. We're going to file. I'm going to save as, or save in this case, part B. Next. I always hated when teachers did this too. They did math, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, why didn't I just think of doing it that way? But it's all good. Next one. C. So C is, I don't want to say tricky, but how many parts do you really see in C, guys? Two, right? So a lot of people I saw were drawing this rectangle, then drawing this triangle and trying to extrude it over, and then they had like, you know, parts that were all messed up and kind of mixed in there, and then they were trying to draw this square here, and then another triangle on top of that. Let's blow your mind here. Here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw basically that part one. I don't just randomly make these parts up. I did this on purpose. Remember that this piece here looks a lot like the very first isometric one you did. Okay? It's actually just two isometric ones put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new sketch. I'm going to pick this one right here. I am going to draw that front view, that complex view that goes all the way up to 6. It goes all the way over 1, all the way over to 1. Don't know what that angle is, so I'm going to go backward by design here. Come back over here, over 4, up, it says another 4, and now I have that first weird shape. Okay, stop sketch. Go to the angle so you can see what I'm trying to do. Extrude it. And it says that it is 1 inch or 1 thick. Excuse me. See how I got the first part, right? Now a lot of people are like, okay, so how are you going to get a random plane in here for me to draw this other piece? Well, if you look, and I could rotate this object, I can't yet, but if I could rotate that object, it's meeting with the back piece. So why do we have to draw it here? Can't we draw it over here and just extrude it over? Of course we can. So I'm going to do that. Instead, I'm going to rotate this around, and I'm going to draw it on this surface. So new sketch here, and then I'm going to draw that whole entire piece. So from this corner over, it goes 2.5. And that line, it goes up to the little first part there, which is 3 high. And then the overall one, again, I'm going to have to go backwards by design here, goes up 4.5. I can connect the dots. Now, I have this other little piece. All I got to do is extrude it, and extrude it 1.5 as it says. And you see if I put a positive number in, it goes the opposite way. All you got to do is then, and all negatives and positives do, is change the way that it goes. Press enter. My whole entire piece is done within 2 parts. Okay? Good on C. Any questions on C? Okay, let's get some challenge here. I like these ones. These are always fun. So let's do file, save. This one's part C. Part D. Here we go. Part D can be a little tricky. So it's all about how you start this one, right? So I would, in my mind, I want to get the complex stuff out. We know we can make this rectangle anytime we want, right? And this rectangle is pretty straightforward. But these circles are going to be a pain in the butt. So let's just start with those circles, okay? The first one, the outside one, if you look at it, a lot of people were like, I have no idea what that diameter or any of that kind of stuff is. Neither do I. I'm going to try and figure it out a little bit different way. So I am going to draw this inner circle. I'm going to just start with what they give me and try and do the math later. So it says to draw a 10-inch circle, basically. So let's start there. We're going to draw it on this surface. Drop this sketch down. Circle is right here. 2 diameter circle. And what that does, and we'll start from the origin from there, it says to draw 10. Click it twice. And you got the first circle, right? I'm going to stay in that sketch. And then it says to draw, it doesn't really say, but I'm going to draw a line over 10 like it says it goes back to that point. Then if you look at it, it actually says right here, and this is what people don't really look at, it doesn't say a diameter for this, does it? But can't you tell that this height is the same as this height here? So what is the overall diameter of that circle? What is it? The diameter is 15 from here to here, right? Of that giant circle there. Because you can tell that this is completely flat. Goes in, comes back, you know this is 15. So we're going to come back and I'm going to draw a circle that is on top of that. Same deal, but this one's going to be 15. I press enter, enter, and now I have my overall thing, my overall shape. I'm going to draw a line up, and if you look close enough, I can draw it pretty close. And then I'm going to draw a line that goes from here, basically comes back, and you can see that little thing says perpendicular. I press OK. Now over here is another little tool that you can use, okay? We need these two, this line here and this line, to be tangent. Tangent just means that a circle and a line are basically perfectly aligned. Tangent here to here. Now you'll see that little symbol there. We're good to go, and now I know it's perfect. I'll draw another little line. And the reason I didn't tell you any of this, guys, is because it was totally extra credit to do these assignments. So I'm going to start it again randomly. Oh, it's already tangent. I'm that good. Tangent from here to here. Okay. Now another little tool that's going to save your world. If I was to stop this and extrude it, I got like 15 little pieces here, right? I don't like that. So I'm going to show you a new command. This one's called trim. For those of you guys who are lost in where your sketches are and all that kind of stuff, you just come over to sketches here. This little white line or a little white triangle will drop down the existing sketches. I'm not in sketch mode right now. I need to and fix some of the things in here. So I'm going to double click the icon. Don't double click the bulb, and don't double click the word. Double click the icon. When you double click that, it'll go into sketch mode again. I'm going to teach you guys how to use what's called trim. If you go to sketch, you come down here to trim, or just click T, like literally the letter T, this will allow you to trim pieces that you don't necessarily want. Okay, so your tangent's there, it's all pretty. Now that circle's gone, I don't need this, I don't need this anymore. I can press stop sketch, and now it's way prettier. Also, I got these overhangs here, so I'm going to just hit T, trim that up, trim this up, trim this up, and I press stop sketch. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to press extrude and just extrude that outside piece, and it says it's 3. Positive 3 in this case, it looks like. Doesn't matter. And now I have my first piece. Now it's super easy from here on out, because now all I got to do is I can draw a new sketch on this side, on this surface, to be a rectangle from this corner, and then we want it to be 15. And tab, we want it to be thick 3, it says. I press stop sketch. I extrude that piece that away. Negative, it says 13. Go to the corner. My piece is done. Any questions on that one? Okay? Good to go. I can file, save, and then the mother of all. Here we go. Part D. This one was the hardest one for most people. The reason that it's difficult is because you feel like they're not giving you everything you need as far as dimensions and stuff. So let's tackle this puppy. I would start with the base. I would build this little piece here, and another command I didn't teach you before was called fillet. I taught it to you now, but we can do that with models too. You don't just have to do that with just lines. You can do that with solid pieces. I'll show you all that in a sec. So I'm going to draw this base, and then I'm going to draw this circle on the back and extrude it this way. So I got two separate pieces, but I'm going to join them together. So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is, like I said, that base part. Got to see the holes. Okay, press new sketch, front view. I'm going to draw the overall dimensions. So the overall dimensions in this case are, looks like 2.5 tab by 1.5. Enter. Now what I can do is I can do the same thing I already taught you, that fillet is called. I taught you trim, not fillet, I'm sorry. Fillet, basically, as you can see, is going to create a curve radius around where you would usually have like a corner. Fancy word for corner. So what I can do is I can do it there, and I'll show you what it does. Do fillet from there to this point, and I can move this in to make it basically a curved piece. I'm not going to do that because I want to show you a different way of doing it. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw a line and put those holes. Now the holes, I didn't teach you this stuff either. It says 0.25 diameter, which means that obviously this is a 0.25 diameter, through, which means that it goes through the part completely, and times 3, meaning that there are 3 identical ones on that same surface. Again, 0.25 is the diameter of the circle, through means through all, and times 3 means that there's 3 of them on the same surface. Okay, so I'm going to draw each one of those. First I got to have a place on here to draw them. So I'm going to start from this little corner here. I'm going to go down 0.375, and I'm going to click enter. Oops, 0.375, enter. I'm going to do it in 0.375 as well. Do the other corner, 0.375 up, 0.375 in, excuse me. Now I got 2 dots. Keep going on this corner, 0.375 and 0.375 up. Circle, and I know the diameter is 0.25, 0.25, enter, enter. Same exact thing on that new point that we just created, 0.25, enter, enter. Circle again, 0.25, enter, enter. Now when I extrude this thing, which I'm going to do right now, I can now extrude those holes already in it. This piece, those holes are just going to follow, and it's a 0.25 thickness, and I have pretty much my base. Except for those funky little holes that I see there, and I don't like those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to make those corners. I'll make it exactly the way it is in the picture. How to make these edges curved. So I'm going to go, instead of sketch fillet, I'm going to go to modify fillet. And if you ever get lost on what did he say, what's that command called, you can scroll over any one of these commands and it'll show you an image literally of what that command does. Rule fillet, chamfers, shells, what they do, drafts, scaling, combining, replacing, all these features will show you some kind of way of what these things do. So if you ever get lost, use the help. Okay, use the help they give you. It's pretty good about doing that. So I'm going to go into modify. I'm going to go into fillet. And I'm going to click the edge, and I'll zoom in. The edge itself, and this other edge out here, you can do multiple ones at the same time. And I know by looking at it, it says 0.25 is the radius. 0.25, and now it cuts in those corners and makes them round. Okay? Any questions on that so far? We get where we got the base. I only have one sketch still so far too. If I want to see where that sketch is at, I click this light bulb, and it all comes back. Click that light bulb off, it comes right away. Last piece. So I'm going to draw a new sketch onto the back here, and I'm going to draw this back piece that you guys see right here. So I'm going to draw this piece, but coming from the back and up. So I need to start from the bottom all the way to the top. I'm going to draw a line from here. I'm going to go all the way, you know what? I'm going to draw a line over 1. That gives me this, right? So if I look at this drawing, this is where some of you guys might have got lost too. It goes over 1, right? I have no idea how tall this is. However, I do know that this diameter is 0.5 and that this radius is 0.5, right? That makes this whole entire thing 1. That makes sense because from here to here, it says it's 1. Diameter is 1, radius is 0.5. It's half of the diameter radius is. So if that's the case, from this dot all the way up to here, it says it's 0.5. I know that this is 0.5 subtracted from this, right? That gives me 1.25 from the bottom up to that center point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw from right to the center, and you see that triangle that popped in right there? That triangle, boom, right there, it kind of locks in. That means that you're in the midpoint. That's literally the center of those two dots. So I'm going to scroll up, and I just said 1.25 to that center of the circle. Now I have somewhere I can draw. So I go center, or I'm sorry, sketch, center diameter circle. I'm going to make the first center, which is in this case 0.5. That's the diameter. Enter, enter. Now I need to make another circle, and I didn't teach you this. How do I make it its diameter? I need it to be radius. Right click, and then you should be able to, radius. Oops. Oh boy, Mr. C's struggle bus. Center dimension. Uh-oh. I want that to be, you know what, you can't do it that way. Let's do it this way. So we're going to draw it over 0.5 because we know that the radius is going to be 0.5, and then we're just going to draw a circle and we're going to cheat. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did on that other drawing. I'm going to go from that tangent all the way down to this file. Okay, repeat line. That tangent didn't lock in for me, of course. Tangent, oop, locked in there. Good to go. I'm going to trim this stuff up because I don't like all this mess in here. Trim, trim, trim. That's good enough. Press OK. Stop sketch. Make it so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Extrude that piece, that piece. I'm going to make it all come in this way. I'm sorry. I put that on the wrong side, didn't I? Oops. I did. I put the circle on the wrong side. So this circle is going to be covered up. But you guys understand what I'm getting at. So this is going to come out. And this is another thing that a lot of people were confused on. How do I know what the distance is for this piece, right? So if you look at this, it does say 0.375 to this circle. If you look close enough, they match up. This is basically missing a dimension here. For the sake of just understanding how to make it, I'm going to assume that it is, and this is the worst thing to do, but I'm going to assume that it is 0.375 thick. So I'm going to say negative 0.375, and the reason it's negative is because it's going to go that way. If I put it positive, I'll show you again. It's going to go the opposite way. We want it negative to go the right way. Press enter. And then, this is great actually, I screwed up on purpose. That was all part of the plan. This circle shouldn't be there, right? It should be over here. So this is a good modifier. So I want to move that circle. Instead of creating a new sketch and putting it on there, I'm going to go and look. Not that one. Yep, that one. I'm going to modify that sketch. It goes back into that sketch mode. And now what I can do is I can delete that. And then I can create another line over here where the circle is supposed to be, 0.375. And then another line, 0.375. I got my circle. I'm going to put in. That should be 0.25. Enter, enter. I'm going to delete these other lines because they're not any use to me anymore. And now when I press stop sketch, it'll automatically, it should anyways, fix that. You see how this little yellow says it's screwed up and it says there's more information here? So what I would do is I would go back to this thing, and this is the timeline down here. I never showed you this either. This timeline, sorry. This timeline will tell you what you've done and when you've done it. So if, let's say you edited that sketch, right? I want this to be visible, and I don't want this picked to be picked. I want profile plane here to be picked. So delete that. I can click that. Now I press OK, and it fixes it. So down here you'll see, and some of these are not done, so it'll say something wrong with this. It'll tell me, I didn't read it. Press stop sketch, and now my piece is good to go. Okay? Your turn. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I want you guys to get some more practice. So you will, you'll have the rest of the class today.